It is time to talk about my least favorite right-wing grifter. And I say grifter with the most confidence as I've ever said it in regards to this woman, because never has there been someone who so blatantly and shamelessly changes their public political positions to follow what will make them the most money at any given time on a daily, if not hourly basis. She is always chasing that sweet, sweet money, and this has taken her from being a loud and proud Trump supporter to nowadays where she is anti-Trump because Trump is pro-Israel, and she's now delving deep into the conspiracy sphere to keep the most radical MAGA types pleased. She's now basically being this, like, reasonable person looking into these crazy conspiracy theories and finding out maybe these conspiracy theorists weren't so crazy after all. That's been her brand for these last few months. And she's gone from claiming that climate change isn't real to more recently claiming dinosaurs are fake and gay, which was, I think many people thought, going to be the floor of how far she was willing to take this. But no. As I've said time and time again, for years now, the next step for these people, or at least a step they will reach, is Flat Earth. There is no way at this rate Flat Earth does not become part of the right-wing populist line that must be towed. I have sworn this for a while, and I have told you guys to mark it on your calendars, set reminders, and check it every year or so to see if Flat Earth has been embraced by them yet on a broader scale. But I believe my point is finally being proven right. Because we here have a Professor Dave Explains video. Professor Dave is a great channel, by the way. Really good science education content, debunks flat earthers like none other, love his stuff. He recently put out a video, as in 16 hours ago recently, responding to Candace Owens, for the second time, mind you. Because this time, she's not talking about how dinosaurs are fake and gay, she's talking about how space is fake and gay, which is literally the precursor conspiracy to the idea that the Earth is flat. It's happening, guys. Now, she did kind of dabble in Flat Earth with the whole final experiment thing, but now she's embracing Flat Earth fully now, despite literally claiming she has had it proven that the Earth is round based on the results of that experiment, because, you know, chasing money and all that, she's now embracing the Flat Earth movement. If this is representative of where the overall right is starting to turn, I'm so fucking excited. I genuinely think flat earthers might be the dumbest demographic of conservative conspiraboomers out there. If this becomes the line they toe, I will be so happy. They did it with anti-vax, they can do it with this too. So let's find out. I'm ready to laugh.
Hey everyone, you've all seen me mock flat earthers more than a few times, but this ridiculous cult has recently gained an unexpected member in the form of Candace Owens. She's really been dazzling the internet with her stupidity lately, so let's check it out. In case you haven't heard of Candace, she's a conservative political commentator and total nutjob whose ridiculous positions go far beyond.
No, she's a grifter. Like if you really dig into her history, she used to be the most libcuck SJW ever. Her original, like, the way I originally heard about her was when she created a website called Social Autopsy, which was, in her words, a doxing website centered around holding cyberbullies responsible for being racist, misogynistic, and sexist. I'm not kidding. It was a website where you would dox a collective database for doxing racists and cyberbullies on the internet. The anti-SJW community at the time they opened a can of whoop-ass on her, to say the least, right? And she realized how much money the people calling her out were making and immediately started emulating their behavior. And now today she is one of the most prominent conservative voices on the internet. She owns Facebook.
On supporting Trump, lying about vaccines, and whining about Black Lives Matter. After working for conservative propaganda outlets like PragerU and the Daily Wire, she went off on her own and now pumps out high-octane garbage on YouTube. Now, I've actually talked about
Lord. You know, we talked just yesterday about how Innuendo Studios, representative of most of the online left, you know, this guy is literally a 500K plus channel, literally has to quit YouTube because it's just not making enough money for him to survive. He's got to go get a part or full-time job and focus his attention on that rather than creating. Look at Candace Owens. Candace Owens and Ian Carroll, the Candace podcast episode 171, uploaded a month ago, 1.2 million views. On her lame podcast of her for an hour and 10 minutes sitting in front of a laptop talking to some guy about blackmail, RFK Jr., the digital surveillance state, Donald Trump, the CIA, and more. Like Jesus fucking Christ, dude. The amount of algorithmic favor the right has requires so much effort on the part of you guys to overcome. It's why I'm so thankful when you guys hit that like button. I would love for one day, I would love for us to average a quarter, a fifth, a tenth even of what she pulls on the average podcast episode. Good God. She really is she's good at grifting. She's pulling in the big bucks, that's for sure.
And now pumps out high-octane garbage on YouTube. Now, I've actually talked about Candace in passing a few times before. The first time was in my first video about a Piers Morgan segment, which was mainly about Terrence Howard, but also brought up a ridiculous rant from Candace about science being a pagan faith. Let's start things off by examining the 10-month-old video that rant came from so that we can get some context. And then we will get to a more recent video where she complains about the You Go Girl Blue Origin flight with Katy Perry and friends. Just so you're aware, this video is called The Shocking Satanic Origins of NASA. Kind of sounds exactly like a flat earther, huh? Let's take a look.
Uh-oh, ladies and gentlemen, I am in trouble again. Why am I always in trouble? I'm trending on...
Every one of these, right-wing channels does this thing where they have, five... they just flex how much money they have because they have, 6 different... $8,000 cameras connected to $2,000 capture cards, all streaming at once, where they can have these live camera switches for just random angle changes. It's the most unnecessary thing ever. These shows could easily be done with one $8,000 camera fixed on them, and yet they have 5 of them set up so they can get multiple angles to switch through, and it's probably $15,000 to $16,000 total dollars in camera equipment alone to do this effect. And Brett Cooper does it, Ben Shapiro does it, Matt Walsh does it, Candace Owens does it. It's very down to the angle where the camera switches around from different directions. They all do the same thing.
On Twitter for saying something unsayable. Look at this #1 trend. It reads, Candace Owens rejects Earth theories, faces backlash. How am I ever going to survive this? But also I have to admit that trend is kind of cool because I'm trending under science, and that is a first. It's got me feeling like CO the science gal.
Don't they literally think Bill Nye is a cuck?
You know you've hit rock bottom when your attempt to entertain and persuade people genuinely looks like an episode of Tim and Eric. Her attempt to satirize a popular science communicator involves just saying, Christ is king, and patting herself on the back.
Guys, I can tell you as a progressive content creator, conservatives actually think saying Christ is king to you is the most triggering thing imaginable. I'll get chuds in chat spamming Christ is king, and it's man, they think it hits saying a slur. It's they actually seem to be convinced progressives are demons who burn when they hear Christ of Nazareth and his name evoked. It's it's very Voldemort, you know what I mean?
Back for no reason. This is the level of intellect we will be dealing with throughout this video.
All right, so whenever I'm trending over something that's just not that big of a deal, I know that there's something the establishment wants to hide. It's called a media overreaction.
Kind of like how conservative pundits never shut the fuck up about trans...
Well, that's hilarious. Literally, Steve Bannon, the mastermind behind Trump's campaign, has a method that he coined that is the core of Trump's campaign strategy called he calls it flooding the zone, which, verbatim, quoting him, is when they overwhelm the mainstream media with too many stories to actually focus on what's important and get the people informed on what's actually important.
people? Got it.
Monday, I did this whole long episode about why I am now rejecting the cult of science. So many things that they lied to us about: vaccines, birth control, people that are being injured, and we just accept everything the experts say.
You uniformly reject everything that experts say. That's how you became this complete joke of a person that denies literally all of science. Stop pretending otherwise.
And we're sacrificing our own bodies. It just feels strange. It feels wrong when you look further in the history.
Like, I'm sure Dave knows he's a smart guy, though he has to respond under the blaringly false pretense she's being sincere in anything she's saying. She is a grifter, and she is just saying this to please the most mentally ill people on the internet, who also happen to be the most high engagement, high support. Like, having a crowd of extremely obsessed, dedicated, mentally ill conspiracy theorists, like, those people will literally pay you like their life savings every month because they believe that you're the one fighting against the lies. These are not well-adjusted people, and they're very easy to milk money out of. And that's what Candace Owens is doing. She is one of the many people like Alex Jones who recognizes that a small group of whales exist, so mentally ill and spiteful towards the left that they will make a millionaire out of a racist lady who called a child the N-word on a playground. They'll make her a millionaire just to spite the left. There is a culture around the right in using the immense amount of money they tend to hold to support each other and to bolster their reach and movement, something the left does not culturally value in the slightest. And so, yeah, this lady is just niching down to those people. She's just trying to please a group of a very small but loud group of insane conspiracy theorist whales in her audience.
History, they just keep lying and getting away with it. What I said was that science has become a pagan faith. Yes, that's what I actually believe. And I said, if I don't get it from the Bible and I can't observe it with my own eyes, I don't stand it as the truth.
What an immaculate display of the mentality of a cult member.
I'm pretty certain that the audience that she is appealing to thinks that pagan means non-Christian. Like, essentially, like a pagan means, like, when you do scary rituals and there's, like, pine branches or whatever, like Christmas. But they don't make that connection. They don't talk about that.
Who is they? Every scientist in the entire world? What are they lying about? No concrete examples, of course, and then a remarkable contradiction. If she can't get it from the Bible and can't see it with her own eyes, nothing from the Bible can be seen with her own eyes, and yet she blindly believes it, while rejecting empirical science that can indeed be seen with her own eyes. She's just...
Well, there's this, like, culture, right? Now, the biggest Candace Owens fans, believe it or not, are a mix of two people. 50% of them are middle-aged boomers on Facebook, like a lot of like conservative like aunties and whatnot. And then on top of that, you've got the conservative teenage to young 20s white boys. There are a lot of like really racist, like groiper teenage white boys that watch Candace Owens. They make up a surprising amount of her audience. And a lot of them are like tradcath LARPers. You know the type, like the Roman statues on their profile picture on Twitter and whatnot. Like a lot of them are like, they love to brag about how they're Catholic. They're always Catholic, right? And they LARP super hard about it and everything. And they're also super edgy and they're like, heh, Christ is king, cuck. That kind of guy. That is the crowd that she's like marketing herself to. And I think the best show of that is the fact that when she says she doesn't believe in space or dinosaurs, she doesn't just say it's fake or a lie. She specifically calls it fake and gay. And if you have spent enough time on the internet, you know what crowds resonate with that particular wording, and you know who she's trying to appeal to with that wording.
Too lazy and stupid to look.
I'm starting to see a trend that every time you start talking about the Bible, you start talking about God, you start talking about spiritualism, and recognizing that America and the West is an anomaly, that there are spiritual forces that are working on people at all times, the media panics because the media, in my view, is a bit satanic. I genuinely believe this.
Religious nut jobs just can't handle the fact
She's very performative. She's putting on a performance for audience. And I love how often she clarifies, I genuinely believe this. I actually think this. It's like, sure you do. Yes, people who think things for real often have to clarify repeatedly how they're not just memeing, joking, or trolling.
that the world is becoming increasingly secular because it reminds them that they are deluding themselves. They need absolutely everyone to believe not just in God and creationism and prophets and miracles, but their specific God and creation myths and prophet and miracles. They pretend that the cold, dark world is intolerant to their bright, shining faith, when in actuality they are intolerant towards anyone that knows how infantile they are. They engage with stories and concepts like literal toddlers who believe in scary boogeymen in the dark and who need an omnipotent daddy figure to take care of them and tell them what to do, and then act offended that the rest of humanity has progressed to at least a kind of adolescence where we are ready to take responsibility for our own actions and learn something concrete about the world around us.
Let me just tell you guys, in 2015, all right, I'll rewind a little bit, okay? I was not raised religious in the slightest. Not in the sense that, like, I was raised in an atheist household. I was raised around a lot of religions. I just wasn't, like, taught to believe in any of them. And it was just, like, more or less my education around it was, some people have different belief systems. Some people believe in a single God that, based on these principles basically describing Christianity, you are allowed to go to heaven, and it's this place where you get to live forever with your loved ones and family, and so on and so forth. You know, basically just describing a general idea of what heaven is, the Bible. Like, I basically was just, I had it explained to me when it was something that I was curious about, because what is a cross? What is church? What are these different religions? Like, who's that? What's that guy? Oh, it's a rabbi. What's a rabbi? Oh, well, here, you know, you learn these things your life, but I was never taught it as part of one of these religions. You know, religion to me has always been, you know, I think of Christianity, Islam, Judaism in the same way that I, and many of you probably think of, like, Norse religions or like the Greek gods or whatever. I really just think of it as a cool fictional belief system full of characters and moral values that carries some level of utilitarian value. But the biggest value I derive from them is entertainment, frankly. I find the Bible, the Christian Bible in particular, pretty damn entertaining. There are some great stories in it that are just fun to tell to people that don't know the Bible that well. Like, just to, like, not as a Christian, just telling them some crazy ass, like, standout Bible stories is always fun. But I was never, like, taught to be Christian or religious or of any kind, right? And so, growing up, I was frustrated with people who were not religious, not just by people who were religious. Like, I didn't really care if someone was Christian. I was always just like, oh, yes, people have their beliefs, right? You know, whatever lets you cope with being mortal, right? Like, that was my mindset. I had a kind of cynical view of things, to be honest. But I was pretty nice about it, except for when I saw fundamentalist Christians. Even as a young man, like 10 years old, I had enough wherewithal to be frustrated by people who thought their fictional religion should be forced on everyone else. That always rubbed me the wrong way, and people who thought and talked that way always pissed me off, and I never liked them. And so, growing up and getting onto the internet, I quickly found myself enjoying atheist YouTube content. You know, you got your classics like The Amazing Atheist, of course, but there was a wide, broad community of people whose content was focused on debunking and making fun of fundamentalist Christians, notably, but just religious fanatics across the board, right? And I noticed in 2015 that there was a massive cultural rise in this, like, smearing of atheists, essentially. Like, a lot of people were making jokes where Reddit atheists, quote unquote, were the butt of the joke. Like, the implication was, oh, you're an atheist? You must wear a fedora and own a samurai sword and spend all your time on Reddit. Like, if you weren't there at the time, you don't get it. It wasn't just a specific targeted ire at, like, that kind of person specifically. It was a straw manning of all atheism as that. and it's really hard to put into words, but it was like, it was actually cringe from 2015 to 2017 to not believe in God. To be an atheist, to like espouse the fact that you do not believe in anything, was seen as cringe. Like, people would outright say, oh, you don't believe in God, you think God's not real, oh wow, you're so brave. Like, that would be the response if you like casually brought up that you didn't believe in God or that you were an atheist, especially if you called yourself an atheist. People started calling themselves agnostic because they were afraid of being called atheist, right? Like, people who didn't believe in God or anything were afraid of calling themselves that because of how negative that term became. And it's ironic that as the term atheist became a dirty word, the anti-SJW community rose to its peak in prominence and power. I, to this day, maintain that the hate and ire the internet like cultivated for atheists, particularly the Reddit atheist, has been weaponized has turned into something way out of control. You can argue the Reddit atheists were cringe as much as you like, but it has turned into what we're going through now, where Christian propaganda and the idea of being atheist have become, well, the Christian propaganda has become prevalent, and the idea of being atheist has become something you might low-key feel ashamed about online. When growing up, being atheist was the standard, you know? Like, if you espouse the idea that you believed in Sky Daddy on the internet, you were going to get roasted. Now you get roasted if you don't believe in Sky Daddy. It's just, times have changed, man.
They refuse to leave this developmental playpen, and it's pathetic.
The origins of NASA are satanic. And I went, what? What are you talking about? And OMG, you guys, buckle up. What I'm about to tell you, you're not even going to believe me, but you can just research this.
No, I definitely won't believe you, because Satan isn't real. He's the boogeyman in the story you believe because you have the intellect
just research,
of a toddler.
guys.
An evil force ruining the plan of an omnipotent deity who just can't get rid of his enemy for some reason. Totally believable. Anyway, she now goes on a long rant about Aleister Crowley, Jack Parsons, satanic rituals, dirty sex stuff, and pretending that NASA exists basically because of these few people alone.
Remember, Candace Owens is one of the conservatives who claimed that the Diablo 4 launch party was satanic. Ironically, a game that Elon Musk plays a shit ton of. Diablo 4 launch party satanic. Who remembers this conservative satanic panic a year ago? Hold on, let me see if I can find the post. Here it is. Here's an article from back in the day about it. I couldn't find any of the tweets archived. Oh shit. Do they not found? Oh, I forgot that Elon made it so you can no longer link tweets. Isn't that the case? You can't link tweets anymore? Maybe if I load this like into my browser, can I go to it? The owner limits who can read the account. Is there any archival of that tweet or any other? Damn, that sucks, man. Once again, a good example of how the left has like no cultural preservation going on. Like, oh, the Chuds embarrassed the fuck out of themselves by calling the Diablo launch party satanic. Let's embarrass them about that forever. You know, let's hold that to them. Nah, can't even find a single screenshot of a tweet of it. And this is like a month-long ordeal on right-wing Twitter for like ever. Anyway, here's the image of the Diablo 4 launch party, where they had like the main villain kind of descend from the ceiling, like a cosplayer dressed as the villain descend from the ceiling. And the right were posting video clips of this, like out of context and whatnot, and saying this is a exclusive party in LA where footage has been caught of a demonic ritual. You know, it's like, dude, that's the Diablo 4 launch party, man. Like, Diablo 4 just came out. That's literally the villain from Diablo 4.
cultist who pledged his allegiance to demons. He routinely practiced sex rituals. He believed in masochistic and sadistic sex, believed in free love, and he's the man who made rockets a reality and co-founded the agency's Jet
Rockets are
Propulsion
evil.
Lab. NASA would later consider that experiment, which happened again on Halloween, to be the first rocket experiment.
No way.
There's no point in listening to all of this. It's just the standard propaganda technique of pointing at one person.
So, like, I'm going to say it, and unapologetically so, Candace Owens is literally trying to grift off of schizophrenics. Like paranoid schizophrenics are the people whom she is trying to profit off of. A very vulnerable group who are very desperate for people to validate their delusions, and if they have it, will literally dump money on someone who does that for them out of a feeling of relief that someone believes them in their worldview. She is literally just trying to validate the opinions of the most mentally ill people online for their approval. And keep in mind, by the way, you all remember the Christchurch shooter, right? The guy who committed the largest terrorist attack in New Zealand's history, killed 50-plus people at a mosque. In his manifesto, he wrote that the number one inspiration for him committing the attack was Candace Owens, who is, you know, very much has a large appeal with, like, your radical, insane, edgelord Catholic tradcath LARPer teenage white boys, who are typically the ones who do these terrorist attacks, like Christchurch.
That will seem unsavory to her demographic and discrediting entire fields of science or institutions by association. John Money bad, therefore blah 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 trans is bad. Werner von Braun lived in Nazi Germany, so NASA is Nazis. Jack Parsons was a weirdo, therefore all of NASA is based on Satan stuff. A classic tactic. In reality, NASA was founded in 1958 primarily in response to the Soviet Union's launch of Sputnik in 1957. Eisenhower didn't want the U.S. to fall behind with regards to space technology for reasons including national security.
I would love to know if Candace Owens thinks that Putin is lying about Russia having gone to space. I have a feeling she would not argue that. Like, she'll argue that humanity hasn't been to space in the context of the U.S. and, like, the space race and the conspiracy theories. But if it came to, like, having to say Putin is a liar who is claiming that Russia has launched things into space and space isn't real, he's in on it too, she'll never claim that. She'll never own that position because so much of her audience is also pro-Russia and pro-Putin. She can't simultaneously hold those positions despite them necessitating your belief in both of them being true to hold, like, one of them, right? And it's just because, like, she doesn't have an actual worldview. She has a set of performative positions every video meant to appeal to a target audience and make them feel like they should support her because she's saying what they like.
And he established NASA as a civilian agency rather than a military one, believing it would be more effective for space exploration. Immediately upon forming, it had 8,000 employees that it inherited from the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. Anyone fixating on one or two people as the basis for the formation of NASA is an idiot.
That reported that he chanted Crowley's hymn before he lit his rockets. They're just chanting satanic, demonic hymns before they lit these rockets, guys. This is not a joke. This is not a test. This is history that is hiding right under your nose.
Nobody cares, Candace. Nobody cares. If something works in science, it doesn't matter what you chant before or...
One of my favorite things is to look into what, like, scientists from back in, like, the 1700s and before thought other planets had going on with them, right? Because, like, as recently as, like, 200 years ago, they thought that Mars, Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter were just filled with alien life. Intelligent alien life. Like the smartest minds in history, if you look into what they thought about space, about, like, whether or not ghosts are real, they held some pretty wild beliefs. It's, like, surprisingly recently they held some pretty wild beliefs, right? It is the prerogative of anti-intellectuals to argue that the intellectual process of trying to divine truth through a haystack of misleading information or false hypotheses must suggest the natural seeming inconsistency in that process and that it inherently is centers around testing a hypothesis, finding out if it's true or false, and then, throwing more at the wall until you see what actually works. The fact that it is naturally inconsistent in its findings and its methodology means that anti-intellectuals can point to that inconsistency and use it to argue to scientifically illiterate people that there's something fishy going on. Most viewers of Candace Owens content could not give you the basic 5th grade definition of science. Literally, first page of your science textbook in 5th grade, you read the definition of science as a word, specifically what science is as an entire study broadly, and you learn that definition. Conservatives do not know that definition. They believe science is a religion. They believe science is an institution. They don't understand science to be a process or a mindset around trying to solve problems. They see it as like an organization or an ideology because they are part of an ideology and a religion, and they can't imagine anyone abstaining from that way of existing as like a pawn, part of a greater whole. Like, to exist as an individual is either sinful or doesn't even exist, right? Like, if you exist as an individual, you're not an atheist who believes in nothing. You're a Satanist who's been turned from God by evil influence, which is straight out of the Bible, by the way. The Bible does, in fact, claim to not believe in anything and to instead believe in yourself and to be self-reliant and have your own worldviews is to have been affected by the influence of demons and the devil. That is truly what demonic influence is in the Bible, is simply turning from God and preferring self-reliance, which is why, of course, like the Church of Satan and everything, they all like heavily focus on like self-reliance and all that, because that's literally what Satanism is in the Bible. Like believing that you know what's best for yourself instead of what God believes is best for yourself, that is satanic according to the Bible. Like, straight up, like verbatim.
Or after demonstrating it, whether it's all hail Satan, all hail Jesus, or all hail Tom Cruise. It has no effect on the science, nor does it tie the achievement to any religious group. Rockets work because of science, and there were people all over the world working on rockets. So you can stop pretending that rockets are the product of Satan himself, because again, he's not real, and people who use rockets today don't care that a few people who worked on rockets in the past were a little weird. Although, honestly, worshipping Satan is not any weirder than worshipping the genocidal asshole god of the Abrahamic religions.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the fact that a lot of scientists are Christians, too. And so, like, you could argue that, like, from her perspective, that the fact that so many scientists are Christians themselves means that they are ideological cultists who can't be trusted, right? Like, you could follow that, but of course, Christianity is good and correct, and so, it doesn't apply there.
Sorry.
And the naked pregnant women that were dancing through fire in the garden. This is totally normal stuff, guys. Just, coming up with NASA and jet propulsion, you sometimes got to have a naked pregnant woman dancing in the garden through fire.
And sometimes when you're a fun...
There are actually people who think this way, that, like, Satanism brought rocket technology, which, by the way, exists for no reason because rockets are fake. Is this a fucking lynching? Whose grandpas are these? Can we, like, identify them? That's a photo. Can you... Do we have, like, AI face scanning technology where we can find, like, every one of these people's identities now and charge them for this? If they're alive, I know, like, 40s and whatnot, to the 60s is where a lot of these would have happened, but, like, there are plenty of those people still around today. I want to see handcuffs slapped on these people. I've heard a lot of stories of lynchings, and, yeah, it makes you angry.
Fundamentalist Christian, you have to lynch black people and bomb abortion clinics, or generally do some of the most heinous things in human history.
Yeah.
Apples and oranges, right, Candace?
There you have.
What does the Klan do, by the way, when they want to harass black people? What is, like, the classic thing the Klan does that everyone knows? It's, like, in all the movies and all the TV shows and all the jokes, all the video games that feature the Klan. What do they always do? They burn a giant T. Exactly, Ryoma. They build a giant T where the line goes a little past the horizontal one. The vertical line for some reason goes past the horizontal one, but it's just a T. That's all it is. Just a big piece of wood, exactly.
Have it, guys. That's the origins of NASA and the program, the Jet Propulsion Program, we're going to make it to space mission. But don't worry, it would be totally crazy for you guys to think that Satan worshipers are still involved in NASA. Obviously, after it got started, they went totally clean. Everything was been above board. Nobody believes in this stuff anymore. And yeah, everything's great and everything's normal.
Yes, a story about like 3 people is totally the story of all of NASA. And of course, nobody else at NASA today worships Satan, you guys.
They've done this with Planned Parenthood too. Like, it wasn't the lady who founded Planned Parenthood really racist or something like that? And she was like a eugenics person, but now Planned Parenthood provides mostly neonatal care. And like care, like prenatal care in general, basically, like literally just providing help to expecting couples and contraception to people who don't want to have kids. Very little of their work is done in abortions or anything, but they still use this idea that like Planned Parenthood is a eugenics group to try and argue why you should be in favor of not having rights over what your body is used for, according to the government.
Don't be silly. I'll just vomit up some sarcasm implying that everybody at NASA worships Satan and be on my merry way. How dumb do you have to be to fall for this stuff? And what about the dozens of other space agencies in other countries, Candace? They're all devil worshippers too, I bet? Even in this alternate reality where absolutely every last person who's into rocketry is an evil demon, would that somehow make space fake and the Earth flat?
Science has become a bit satanic. They're telling you to do things that are utterly satanic, sacrificing your children in the name of science because it's just a clump of cells. It's getting weird out there.
Sacrifice your children in the name of science because it's just a clump of cells. It's like, is that why abortions are happening? Because for science? I get she doesn't believe this. It's who is she appealing to? Who are these schizos that think this way, that she is like grifting off of with this video?
And I'm sorry that I notice. That's all I'll say on that topic.
Yes, science is totally asking you
I'm a
to
noticer.
sacrifice your children. That wouldn't actually be your imaginary god.
Oh my god, you're not even... Dude, it's actually hilarious how much of it is projection, huh? It really is hilarious how much of it is projection. No good deity would ever ask you to sacrifice your child.
Who told someone to sacrifice his child and then took it back at the last second, like a fucking sociopath. It wouldn't be you science-denying morons rejecting vaccines that are causing children to die of diseases that we had already essentially eradicated.
No, listen, dude, it's kind of cucked that you care about that, to be honest. Like, you must have Trump derangement syndrome if you think that had anything to do with the fact that Trump's appointed health guy, RFK, is anti-vax, and ever since he took office, these outbreaks have been happening. The fact that you make any correlation between those things is kind of cucked, honestly. Like, cringe, bro. Oh my god, fake and gay, as Candace Owens fans would say. I cannot wait to read the comments in this video.
You're a joke. Anyway, we're now going to move on to some more recent comments from Candace, but first, let's pause for a brief message. In this post-truth era, it's tough to stay informed. Whatever's going on in science or politics...
Ground news, I don't know how I feel about it, but if it's something that appeals to you, I do recommend you check it out. And I highly recommend you go check out the rest of this video from Professor Dave, because there's 21 more minutes of no doubt peak content. Go leave a like and a sub on his channel, and a comment too if you haven't already. But I want to read his comments and sort by newest. I want to see if the chuds are here. Let's see. She's trending because she's stupid and she's... Okay, watch this movie, blah, blah, blah. Insane. Keep calling out these shitty grifters, Professor Dave. MAGA stupidity. Candace Owens, like Lord Jamar, has been dissed by Eminem and Professor Dave. Dissed by Eminem? What? Wait, did Eminem call out Candace Owens? Wait, I think that did happen. Did I completely forget about? I think this did happen, and I totally forgot about it. It was like a Twitter fight, right? I think I totally forgot about that. Holy shit. You know what I'm noticing? There are genuinely no chuds here. Like, none. I think in large part it's because Professor Dave has a very large audience of people who are very active, high engagement, supportive, and very, like, smart, science-minded people who really get a lot out of seeing someone just demolish some nonsense worldview. And so you're not going to see a lot of chuds in the comments section, which makes me happy. But I think it speaks volumes to the fact that the people who watch Candace Owens and believe this stuff are afraid to watch a Professor Dave video. They know that if they watch one of his videos, they're going to be confronted with some facts that they are not willing to find out about. Like, conservatives aren't just ignorant and wrong. They elect a worldview that's convenient for them to be true. And then from there, it becomes their goal to avoid being informed further and thus feeling an onus on them to adjust their worldview in concordance with reality. If they just deny reality, they get to hold the same worldview and repeat the same talking points ad infinitum, never admit they're wrong, which everyone hates doing. And those are the people, I guess, that Candace is shilling to. But those people are terrified of facing the facts and having to admit to themselves, most of all, that they've been fooled. And I think that's why you're not going to see a lot of chuds in this comment section. I feel like a lot of the average Candace Owens fans would avoid a video like this like the plague, because they know they're going to have to watch and hear a lot of real facts before they can find something to try and, like, pick apart and make a comment about. And they don't even want to have to endure that because of how much internal self-doubt they'll feel. And these people are terrified of self-doubt. It's why they don't reflect in the slightest on what they believe. Because if they did, you know, that self-doubt might start to, you know, twinge at their views a little bit. And they don't want to change. They don't want to admit they were wrong. No one likes admitting they were wrong. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed this video and you want to support my channel and let me know that you guys want me to make more content and you like what I do, then please consider leaving a like and a comment. Every single thumbs up and comment boosts the channel and the algorithm in real time and helps immensely, so I really do appreciate it. Make sure to also leave a comment that says, how about this? The Earth isn't real. Let's out conspiracy Candace Owens. Comment down below the Earth isn't real if you want to let me know you watched this far. And it really does help the channel, especially if you like and comment. Of course, if you want to see more from me in the future, be sure to follow my social medias linked down below and subscribe. Especially join my fan Discord, as it's the main hub of my community and fan base, and where I host gaming events, call-in streams, watch parties, and movie nights every Friday, every week. So you don't want to miss anything? That's the place to be. And finally, if you want to support me directly, financially, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buy some custom Xander Hall merch through the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless of how you support me, though, thank you so much for watching, as always, and I hope you all have a good one.